So my friends and I have this little joke. We call people who don't have a Facebook unicorns because, frankly, they don't really exist. And as I was reading, and this joke has moved on to calling other things that we just don't seem to find possible unicorns, such as like anything that we can think of that's just too unreal. So as I was reading Paul Ryan's budget plan for the United States of America, I just kept thinking, this is full of unicorns. So today I'm going to be talking about how Paul Ryan's plan is not a plausible solution to America's budget crisis. I'm going to do this by examining 3 unicorn sightings that I found in his proposal. First is how he plans to take care of unemployment. Second is how he plans to deal with Medicare. And third is how he plans to deal with everything else practically. So first, unemployment. Ryan's plan says that he can get unemployment down to 3% by 2021. Anyone who has already taken econ here at Cal Poly, probably used the Man-Q book, knows that the natural rate for unemployment is 5%. Also, the Congressional Budget Office, which did a analysis of Paul Ryan's Paul Ryan's plan would turn out to be in the long term, their analysis states that really it would amount to maybe 5 or 6%, not his magical 3%. But he plans to do this 3% by lowering corporate tax rates from 35%, which it is now, down to 25%. He believes, which is the supply-side economics policy, that lowering this rate will give big corporations more money, they'll spend this more money on new employees, and that these people will then have jobs. The problem with this idea, though, is that big corporations, they don't really spend money, they don't really pay all their taxes. I have this list from Bernie Sanders, Bernie Sanders, the senator from Vermont, that shows all of the top corporations and what they didn't pay on taxes. So let me go through this really quick. ExxonMobil, their 2009 profits totaled $19 billion, but they didn't pay any taxes. In fact, they got a rebate of $156 million. Second, General Electric. They made $26 billion in profits, but they received a rebate of $156 million and also didn't pay any taxes. Chevron, they got $10 billion in profits, got a rebate of $19 million. Boeing, they received a rebate of $124 million. Valero, $157 million. Goldman Sachs got $800 billion and only paid 1.1% of their profits in 2008. So I really don't think that these corporations are struggling for money at this point and that that's the reason they aren't hiring more U.S. workers. Now on to Medicare. Paul Ryan's plan wants to switch Medicare from what it is now to a voucher program, which will cause recipients to get this portion of money to spend on a pre-approved list of plans. So what this ends up meaning, according to the Congressional Budget Office, is that Medicare recipients would end up spending double of their own money than what they currently do on Medicare plans. Now, I know a lot of us don't care about this, but it is a really big deal that senior citizens are going to have to be spending, according to the Congressional Budget Office's long-term analysis, 60% of their average income on healthcare expenses alone. Do we really want that for our grandparents? I don't really think so. And the other problem with this, though, which is why this isn't plausible, is that old people love Medicare. And furthermore, old people love to vote. In fact, Republicans, even Paul Ryan, won their election claiming that Democrats were going to cut Medicare, and they scared senior citizens into voting for Paul Ryan and these other Republicans by, saying that they need to protect their Medicare rights. So I really don't think that these senior citizens are going to be all that happy when they find out that Paul Ryan actually is going to be cutting it. So now on to everything else. It seems like I haven't left that much time for this, but really neither did Paul Ryan. He listed that his non-defense discretionary spending would go down from the current 15% that it is down to 6% by 2021. He didn't list any reasons of how this was going to happen, though. Now, what is non-defense discretionary spending? It's pretty complicated. It's pretty much everything. Income security, veteran benefits, international affairs, administration of justice, transportation, agriculture, education, training, employment, social services, environmental programs, science, space, and technology. So that got no talking points in his presentation. Medicare, which is only 0.17% of the GDP national spending, got all of this plannings and everything else. He just said it would happen eventually. Now, to conclude, I was reading through the New York Times articles about Paul Ryan's budget plan, and I thought I saw a very good comment that possibly from a troll by this guy named Robert Rutledge from Montreal. Bob said, or Robert, Ryan thinks his plan marks him as a man who has vision. In fact, it marks him as a man who has visions. And I completely agree with this. This budget plan is completely not a plausible solution to our current budget crisis and has really no political viability. Thank you.
All right, I like the joke that you've got at the beginning and the way that you kind of used the same sort of thing for the supporting points. I thought that was kind of clever. The phrasing of the proposition, though, is in the negative, and you want to avoid that for clarity purposes. Your internal signposting is very clear, so that's not a problem. The supporting information that's where there's a little bit of an issue here, because a lot of your description of the plan, you don't tell us where that description comes from. If you are summarizing somebody else's description of the plan, that would be useful for us to have that citation. For instance, on the issue of the tax policy, give all the examples from Bernie Sanders, the senator from Vermont, about the companies that don't pay their taxes, but that doesn't, that reflects the current situation. I don't know what the Ryan plan does with, I mean, you say what it does with the tax rates, but we also don't know what it does with the way the taxes are assessed. And that's part of the plan, I think, but I don't get a very clear description on that. So I think that you've got two things here that are being connected that are not necessarily related the way that you've described it. On the issue on health care, I think you do, Medicare, I think you do a good job explaining what the political liabilities are on this choice. There's not really much discussion, though, of what the economic ramifications are. You have an interesting argument about the assumptions that the plan makes about there being 3% unemployment, and I think that you need to explain what in the following part of the Ryan plan is dependent upon that 3% unemployment. For example, is that a discussion of what the expected government revenues are going to be based on the number of people who are working, and so it's a projection of future budget revenues, or is it based on the number of people that will be putting money into the system? I don't know why that argument is so important, and you need to explain that a little bit more. I thought that you did an okay job presenting the material. I thought you had good audience contact, and like I said, I thought you had very nice use of language in the presentation too.
All right, thank you.